how do you see the build phase developing? I mean, there's a blueprint, but of course, there's always some deviations, right? So what are some things that you've seen come up in the build phase that can maybe throw a wrench in the plan? And then you have to work together with the vendor to overcome those challenges.
Well, I wish I've never seen any wrenches in the plan. However, I have invariably during this process that you're going to encounter some decisions that need to be made. If you don't have the correct decision makers or access and engagement from those decision makers, you can't get a decision in time to not impact the timeline. If you're sitting there waiting on whether the client can say, yes, please go with plan A or plan B, you might end up having impacts to the timeline. Also, knowing what is in scope and out of scope will certainly help a successful build phase. As the application starts taking phase, the client is attending walkthroughs and working sessions, additional requests may be asked. Consultants have to know the level of effort and the scope that's already been laid out to be able to properly categorize these requests and be able to communicate this to the clients. One final thing with build, assume data validation level of effort will be a surprise to the client. This seems to happen over and over and over where people think, oh, data validation, sure, I'll just kind of check things at a high level and it's all good. No, it is not that simple, and it is time consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you hit on data validation because it is, oftentimes the most laborious part of build. And like you mentioned, it's the project manager's job to collaborate with the team to make sure that there is a defined success criteria and that there is a defined approach. And so while the client does own their data and they know it best, it is in a new form, in a new application. And oftentimes there's a lot of handholding that goes along with that. So I think you're right. It does often come as a surprise, but having a defined approach, having some tools, some accelerators, defining the level of detail up front and what is a measure of success. We've had clients that want to tie everything out to the lowest level of detail. We've had clients that are good with a check at a high level because it's just historical information for comparatives. So there's a variety of approaches. I think, like you said, though, having some options. So moving away from not just data validation, but okay, what are some options that we have? Because there is something that is taking longer. It could be validation. It could be another build item and integration. It could be building out a new process. So we've never forecasted a balance sheet. We've never forecasted cash flow. Maybe we've just always been focused on P&L. So what are the options? So I think that's really important, is that if there are challenges in the build phase, know the pros and cons, know the value, the level of effort. And at the end of the day, it may take the project a completely different direction. But if there's greater value in the long term and the client is aligned with that investment, then it may be worth it. We never want to build a Band-Aid solution without a plan to really have a long-term way forward. So those are some things to look out for in the build phase, because as you know, you don't want to encounter some of these issues as a surprise as we go into testing, right? Which is the next phase of a project.